Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode, I'm discussing the popular 1996 mixed live action and animation sports comedy Space Jam, as directed by Joe Pytka, bringing us an odd-paired kind of combo of basketball sporting legend Michael Jordan and the classic Warner Brothers Looney Tunes in what indeed marks the Looney Tunes' very first live-action theatrical outing. The film sees the Looney Tunes pitted against a race of aliens, intent on enslaving them to work as the entertainment in a failing theme park, aptly named Moron Mountain, out in space, run by the villainous and money-grabbing Mr. Schwackhammer, I think, as voiced by Danny DeVito. In an attempt to evade capture and sensing that the minions known as the Nerdlucks, who Mr. Schwackhammer has sent to retrieve the Looney Tunes, are kind of none too bright, and indeed not exactly the most intimidating. Bugs Bunny, as voiced by Billy West, wisecracking as always, makes them believe that the Tunes have the right to defend themselves, and as a result challenge the aliens to a game of basketball, thinking that the aliens are kind of small stature, their small stature would be to their detriment in such a game. Only thing is, Bugs severely underestimates his opponents on this occasion, who go on to take the talent from a number of NBA All-Stars, transforming themselves in the process into bulked, pumped, and fearsome basketball-playing monsters. In an attempt to even the score, the Looney Tunes kidnap sporting legend Michael Jordan, of course, for their own team, who kind of, let's face it, need all of the help they can get. So, I know how much people love this movie. It's certainly one which kind of did help to kind of define a generation, I think, almost. But although I absolutely love the Looney Tunes, basketball, well, most sports really, as you can probably tell, I'm a geek. So yeah, I'm not really into sports, more the movies and the computers. I can kind of take it or leave it, to be quite fair. So it was kind of many years after, many years after, following the film's release, when I did actually finally get round to watching it. I think I've watched it twice so far, once before and then once for this review. So for me, as odd as the premise is, I did almost expect this to be a monumental team-up, I mean, the Looney Tunes alone were a pull in their own right. And then we have some of basketball's top sporting legends involved. Surely this was going to be the biz, right? Well, honestly, and I'm going to take a step back when I say this in case a lot of things get chucked at the screen. No. Hold on. The movie fails for me on a number of levels. Sure, it's fun enough for a rainy afternoon with the kids. I give it that. And it's enjoyable in its own kind of peculiar way. But it just isn't all that well put together. And, really all style and really no substance. It's a film that tries to cater for a wider audience. But in the end, really just caters for kids, if I'm honest. I personally have no childhood recollections of this movie, but it is probably a bit like kale or popping candy. Tastes nice when you're a kid, but not quite the same as an adult. And that's this film, I think, in a nutshell. As much as we want to love it as adults, it's just not got quite that same appeal as perhaps it once did. For me, personally, it takes far too much time to set things up in the beginning. By the time the initial intro has rolled, you kind of tantamount to have changed your mind about watching the film in the first place. For such a simple premise of setting the scene against a well-known basketball star, it labours this point far too much. We get the point. Even I get the point, and I don't know what I'm talking about with regards to sports, The film concentrates far too much on the sport itself. And again, basketball fans, I hear you screaming that they're out crying at the screen. It does kind of play like a promo for the NBA. It takes far too long for the Looney Tunes to make their appearance. And then we don't get nowhere near enough of them. You know, it plays far too much towards being a basketball fan film and expects its viewers to be too, and relies on us kind of knowing who many of these players actually are. It leans far too much on its human characters, I think, in this instance. I mean, which, let's face it, weren't chosen for their acting abilities. And this more than shows. You know, it takes a lot to act against a green screen. And I'm sorry to say, for the most part, Michael Jordan just looks like he's in a commercial for a box of cereal or some sneakers than a motion picture, you know? It never kind of feels natural, and quite simply put, the Looney Tunes are running rings around their human co-stars. And indeed, it really does feel so much like an extended advert. You know, it has that kind of cheesy, always smile style, you know? The movie also stars Wayne Knight and Bill Murray, amongst others, who do try and prop things up from the human end, but they just never really have anything substantial to work with, you know? And it's a real shame because the Looney Tunes are great, you know, when they're on screen. Bugs and Daffy are up to their usual antics and wisecracks. The rest of the gang on top form, you know? Their world is literally bonkers. But not enough was kind of made of this to call the movie zany enough to be truly a Looney Tunes classic, if you kind of know what I mean. But it never invests more than kind of a few quick quips and fleeting moments. That is until the big kind of basketball playoff, which, unfortunately, just as the kind of movie seems to start moving and kind of gets to where it needs to be, it's over. It's done. The big basketball game against the Nerdlucks, on that basis, just really doesn't seem nearly as intense as it should have been. And so I do feel really bad for not being kinder to this movie. I do know what it means to a lot of people, many people, in fact, including my wife, Leslie, who loved this as a kid. But I must be honest and say she now does share my sentiment with the movie watching it again as an adult. And that wasn't with me coaxing it or saying anything. So I'm not on my own, at least with my thoughts on this film. I don't think, albeit, at least I know my wife won't be the one coming at me with a baseball bat as a result, but I'm still going to be on the lookout for Michael Jordan. but okay, hear me out. It does have some redeeming qualities. I don't just want to trash it. I don't very rarely do that. The animation is excellent, especially the live action mix. The actors might let the side down, but for its time, the combination of animation and live action is absolutely spot on. You can certainly imagine being in this cartoon world, and indeed these characters in ours, you know? The attention to detail is actually quite fantastic in that respect, for its time. Seeing all the Looney Tune characters coming together was just ace, you know? And indeed, an absolutely real treat. And not only the familiar usual suspects as well, indeed they are all there, you know? But also some of the lesser known characters for some of the more classic episodes, some of the villains, side characters and chumps, you know? All there kind of watching the game with intent, trying to spot and pinpoint them all, is indeed one of the movie's highlights for me, you know? And indeed, despite the later wrongdoings of at least one of the artists, the movie's soundtrack is absolutely spot on, with some great 90s tracks, such as R. Kelly's I Believe I Can Fly, Seal's cover of Fly Like an Eagle, and Technotronic's absolute belter, Pump Up the Jam. So much so that the soundtrack itself went 6 times platinum. This is all mixed in with a fantastic score by the ever-excellent James Newton Howard, who brings us some brilliantly playful themes filled with magic, awe and wonder, with a kind of contemporary Looney Tunes twist, you know? So, overall, Looney Tunes are fun, don't get me wrong, and well worth watching the movie for, right? Just nowhere near enough of them at the start. It's not entirely the best-paced or well-acted movie. It's not the laugh-out-loud riot that it should have been, with the whole universe of Looney Tunes at their fingertips. But all in all, on balance, it's still great fun and awesome to see the Looney Tunes back in action once again. That I can't deny. Even if this outing is a little drier than expected, or indeed remembered. It's a film, in my opinion, that should have been a classic, but instead is relegated as being a curiosity. The film is basically, at the end of the day, one big wacky game of basketball, you know? So, that brings me to the end of this episode. I won't be giving out my address for those that you want to complain. Comments down below. But otherwise, yes, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it one way or the other. I really do feel like I've ranted, haven't I, here? But anyway, I didn't mean to. But if you have enjoyed it, leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk, and definitely love to have you back. I do like lots of movies. I did like this one, honest, I did. It's just disappointing, I suppose. But yes, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.